This, in my opinion, is the single worst design choice consumer laptop manufacturers have made in the past decade. This laptop's keyboards are designed to never be replaced, but we're gonna replace it anyway. Keyboards, like many items that are used regularly, wear out over time. But, unlike most other wear and tear items, these keyboards are welded in place. Why do companies do this? They claim that it makes the keyboard feel more tactile and fun to type on, but every repair person knows it's mainly about cutting manufacturing costs and, even more importantly, discouraging self-repairs. So basically, when the keyboard dies or it's damaged, they hope you'll just go out and buy a whole new laptop instead. The thing is, not everyone can afford to do that, especially when everything else on the laptop works fine. And if you plan to send it for authorized repair, the price is usually so high it doesn't even make sense. By this point, I decided to just wing it and replace the keyboard myself. First, I needed to find the right replacement. I checked the serial number on the back of my laptop and searched it on, in my case, Acer's website. I found that my laptop's model was an Acer Aspire E5574G. I tried looking for a local replacement first, but either no one had it or the price was ridiculous for a laptop this old. So I ordered one from AliExpress instead. It took about 2 weeks to arrive. I'll drop the seller's link in the description below. I started by unscrewing the screws on the back panel. Some screws might be hidden under the rubber feet on other laptops, so double check for that. Once the back panel is off, the very first thing you do is disconnect the battery, then press and hold the power button. That'll discharge the motherboard and help prevent any short circuits if something metal, like a screw, accidentally touches it. At this point, you can also remove the battery, if it's accessible. Next, take out the RAM, SSD or hard drive, and unplug every cable going to the motherboard. When you're undoing the cables going to your Wi-Fi card, take note of the cable's orientation. Flipping the black and white wires will stop Wi-Fi from working later, so take a picture. If you're unsure which is your Wi-Fi card, it's a small card with a MAC address sticker and two thin wires, usually black and white, go into it. Honestly, taking a picture of the whole motherboard layout before unplugging anything is a smart move. You'll be happy to have it later on when you're reassembling the laptop. At this point, remove the motherboard itself. Something to note here, this black plastic shield I peel off here is very important. It's called a static shield. It keeps the motherboard from touching the metal backplate. If you leave it out, you risk shorting the board when powering on. Therefore, it's best to keep it safe. This is the first really tedious part of this repair. This whole repair took me about 6 hours. I am not a technician, and filming everything definitely slowed me down. Still, even if you're faster, I would say plan for it to take you at least a minimum of 2 hours. As you can see here, the keyboard isn't screwed in, it's plastic welded in. That means the rivets holding it in place were melted by the factory, and there is no clean way to undo them. To help explain it, I made a quick mock-up. The red part is the palm rest, the black layer is the keyboard, and the gray part is the metal shield that goes over it. The rivets come up from the palm rest, go through the keyboard and the metal shield, and are melted over the backplate, tightly holding everything together. In the real thing, there should be no gaps between the layers. If there are, even slightly, the keyboard will feel mushy and after a few weeks might even sink in when you type. Not fun. So, when cutting the welds off, your goal is to remove as little plastic as possible from the rivet stems. Here's what you'll need: a sharp blade, I only needed one, and gloves. In my case, I also had to unscrew the hinge and separate the screen, just to avoid scratching it while working. With the blade in one hand, firmly press down on the metal shield and slice off the stub at the top of each plastic rivet. You can see more clearly in the mock-up where exactly you should cut the rivets off. If you're lucky enough to have a Dremel with a sanding bit, great, use it, and this job will be much easier and faster for you. At first, I wasn't wearing gloves. This was a terrible idea. The metal shield rubbed against my knuckles so much that it ended up bleeding. I'm not gonna show that on YouTube for obvious reasons, but use gloves or some sort of padding for your knuckles. Once you get into a rhythm, you repeat the same motion 15 to 20 times depending on your model. It's slow, but that's just how these builds are. Once all the rivets are loose, lift out the old keyboard. Then, clean out the inside. Leftover plastic, dust, debris, just get it tidy. This is a good chance to check for any damage or loose parts too. it's time to start melting stuff back on. You're gonna need a soldering iron for this part. If you don't want to damage the soldering iron tip by melting plastic with it, here's a trick you can use. Unscrew and remove the soldering iron's regular tip. Then, get a nail and match its length with the iron tip. It took me a couple of tries to cut it right. My setup wasn't exactly pro level. Once the nail is cut, screw that into the soldering iron and now you're ready. Now that's ready, put the new keyboard in, followed by the metal shield. Here's what else you'll need: the soldering iron with the nail tip, tweezers, and a zip tie or any other hard plastic that can act as a rivet cap. What you're going to do is press the shield firmly down, place a small bit of zip tie plastic on top of the rivet stem, and then use the iron to melt both the stem and the plastic bit together. This forms a new solid weld. While the plastic is still hot, slightly spread it out over the metal, just like the factory weld. This will make sure that everything is locked into place. During this process, regularly flip the frame over and press down the keyboard to check that it's seated properly and nothing is loose. I kept a window open the entire time for ventilation. These fumes aren't exactly the healthiest thing to be breathing for hours on end, so make sure you do that as well. You'll need to repeat this step 15 to 20 times depending on your laptop's model. Yes, it's repetitive, but do it right and you'll never have to open your laptop for the same reason again. I have seen a lot of repair shops that do this job and they only weld 5 or 6 of these rivets to save time. What will most likely happen later on is that when a few of those welds break off, and they will since there is less of them to take the impact of you typing, the keyboard will eventually sink in and start feeling mushy. That's why you should take the time to do as many of these welds as possible. Another method I have seen on YouTube is putting a little bit of sand and super glue into the place where the rivet goes in. Then, when the super glue hardens, it's supposed to hold everything in place. I don't recommend this since the glue will likely break after some usage. So just take your time and patiently do this job properly. Something I did notice at the end was that some of my welds were a bit weak. So how you can check for that is by pushing the weld you made slightly, and if it breaks, it means that weld is weak, so you're gonna need to do it again. After everything is done and dusted, it's time to rebuild. Put the static shield from earlier back in place. It may not stick as well as the original, but it will be good enough. Fish all the wires into their correct spots, screw the motherboard back in, reconnect all cables, reattach the hinge and screen. Notice I forget to reconnect the battery cable here. In case you do that, it's no big deal. Of course, when you connect the charger, the laptop won't charge, but as soon as you take the back cover off and connect the charger, it will be fine. Finally, screw the back panel on. On my laptop, the speakers are on the back panel itself, so I will need to connect them as I put the back panel on. Booting the laptop back up, great news, it works. I cannot type well on this laptop's keyboard comfortably. I actually typed the whole script for this video on the same laptop. This repair, along with recording the video, took me a ton of time. 6 hours for repairing the laptop and many more for editing and voice recording for this video. In case you can't tell, English is not my first language, so it takes me quite some time to make the voiceover, and I don't want to use some AI voice narrator and take the human element out of my video. So, if you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and maybe even subscribe if you want to see more of my content. Thanks for watching and goodbye.